You just got home. It's late, it's dark, and the only thing you had the energy for was a glass of water and the bed. You're lying there, staring at the ceiling in the semi-darkness, listening to the silence. And then, right on schedule, your internal accountant wakes up and starts auditing your life. Rent, insurance, the car payment, utility bills that are always, for some reason, higher than you expected. We've all been conditioned to think that living is expensive. It's a subscription model you can't opt out of. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this comforting, if slightly dark, thought. Well, at least when it's all over, I won't have to pay for this anymore. It's logical, right? Death is the ultimate cancellation of all expenses, the finish line where the checks finally stop coming. But if we actually look at the numbers, we see something unsettling. The truth is, the process of exiting the system today costs more than a full year of your active life. Today, we're going to look at the cold reality behind the title of this video: Why Death is More Expensive Than Living. We aren't going to talk about philosophy or religion. We're going to talk about math, about how the system hands you a final invoice that can wipe out decades of your hard work in a matter of weeks, and why your free rest is actually the most expensive financial transaction your family will ever face. Before we dive into this audit of eternity, hit the like button and subscribe. It's free, unlike the topic we're discussing today. Let's start with the stuff you can actually touch, the direct costs. If you think your insurance or taxes are rising fast, take a look at the end-of-life industry. According to the National Funeral Directors Association, NFDA, the median cost of a traditional funeral in 2024 to 2025 sits between $8,300 and $12,000. And that is the base model, no frills. That's just to legally and physically finalize your presence here. Now, let's run the comparison. The average person spends maybe $1,000 to $1,200 a month on food, clothes, and general life stuff. That means the cost of a single day of your departure is equivalent to a full year of you living your life to the fullest. Over the last 30 years, the cost of these services has jumped by over 200%. The irony here is that it's the perfect business model. The customers never ask for a refund. They don't complain about the lack of lumbar support in the casket. And most importantly, they buy the service when they are in no position to haggle. It's a market with zero price elasticity. You can't say, 10 grand is a bit steep. I think I'll wait a couple of seasons for a sale. The system knows that, and it uses it with surgical precision. But the funeral is just the tip of the iceberg. The real reason death is more expensive than living is buried in the legal fine print. The moment you exit the system, a mechanism kicks in that the financial world calls probate. This is the process where the government and lawyers verify who owns your stuff now. And this is where the numbers get mean. On average, court and attorney fees for settling an estate eat up anywhere from 3% to 8% of your entire gross estate. If you owned a house worth $400,000 and had a bit of savings, your family might hand over $20,000 or $30,000 just to be allowed to keep owning what they already thought was theirs. Think about it. While you're alive, you pay income tax. When you leave, the system often slaps on a transfer tax. In some jurisdictions, this can hit 40%. And don't forget the cost of maintaining the vacuum. While the courts have your accounts frozen, which can take up to 18 months, your house still demands property taxes, heat, and insurance. Your assets are standing still, but the burn rate keeps ticking. Being dead is like maintaining a very expensive vacation home that you never visit, but can't be evicted from until the lawyers finish their coffee. This is where it gets interesting, how our own psychology forces us to overpay. Remember that state you're in, lying in bed after work? Tired, slightly drained, willing to pay anything for some peace and quiet? Now imagine the state of someone who just lost a loved one. Their cognitive ability drops to a crawl. Researchers call this the grief tax. Funeral directors are world-class psychologists. They know that the phrase, "your loved one deserves a dignified send-off," is the most effective way to switch off your rational brain. In that moment, a 400% markup on a cherrywood casket doesn't feel like a robbery. It feels like an act of love. You aren't paying for wood and velvet. you're paying to quiet your own guilt. It's the only time in your life you'll make a five-figure financial decision while under clinical levels of stress. And the system knows it. It's been waiting for this moment for decades. If we lived in a world of pure logic, we'd just save up for the final bill. But in reality, it's more complex. Let's talk about opportunity cost. Imagine if that $15,000 you have reserved for the final project was put into your life right now. If you put that toward paying off your mortgage 5 years early, you'd save $50,000 in bank interest. We spend massive resources to fund the finish line, instead of using that same money to improve the distance. Death is more expensive than living because it has zero ROI, return on investment. When you buy food, you get energy. When you pay for the gym, you get health. When you pay for the exit, you get nothing. It's a pure sunk cost. It's a transaction that creates no value. It just settles an old debt with the system. The irony is, we spend our lives trying to optimize our taxes, only to leave the biggest check for the one day we can't contest it. Why are we talking about this now? Because the rules changed. In the past, people usually checked out leaving behind a paid-off home and a clean net worth. Today, we're seeing the phenomenon of aging debt. Statistics show that the number of people over 70 still paying off a mortgage or student loans has tripled in the last 20 years. This means death isn't just expensive because of the service fees. It's expensive because it leaves behind a financial vacuum. The family doesn't inherit a home. They inherit an obligation to sell that home as fast as possible to satisfy a bank, while the interest keeps compounding. We've turned a natural ending into a complex corporate merger, where the bank is always first in line for the payout. If your assets aren't structured perfectly, your departure won't be a moment of quiet memory for your family. It'll be a second full-time job of dodging debt collectors and meeting with estate attorneys. So, what do we do with all this? Look, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to hand you back the controls. The main takeaway from this math of the absurd isn't that you need to start shopping for caskets today. It's the opposite. The real lesson is that life is actually an incredible bargain compared to what comes after it. Death is more expensive than living because while you're alive, you have maneuverability. You can settle debts early, you can opt out of the unnecessary, and you can invest to let compound interest work for you. Death has no maneuvers. It only has a fixed price list. That midnight math you're doing in your head, it shouldn't be about fear. It should be about clarity. The best way to beat this expensive system is to invest heavily in your freedom right now. Pay down the debt. Close those open tabs we talked about. Make your exit a boring event for the lawyers and the taxman. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that doesn't have a price tag and doesn't get hit with an exit tax is how you spent the time between the first check and the last one. Go to sleep. Tomorrow is a new day, and it's still cheaper than the alternative. So maybe it's worth spending it on your own terms. I'll see you in the next video.